This is NBA Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Senior. Coming your way on today's show, I'm going to predict where the top remaining NBA free agents sign in NBA free agency. And we're going to do this operating under the premise that James Harden is going to return to the Philadelphia 76ers. He was at Michael Rubin's all-white party in the Hamptons over the weekend, and on Saturday, he met with Sixers leadership. Woj saying on Tuesday that he expects a deal to get done in the next day or so. Obviously, if he was still readily available, and if he wasn't going back to Philadelphia, he would probably be the number one marquee free agent on this list, but all signs point to James Harden coming back to Philadelphia. So with that, we take a look at Deandre Ayton, the number one remaining free agent available right now, and of course, he's a restricted free agent. So the Phoenix Suns have an opportunity to match any contract offer that any team offers him. And I think that what Phoenix is doing right now, they're trying to survey the landscape. Can they make a trade for Kevin Durant? And if that's the case, and if it's realistic, they're going to have to include Deandre Ayton. My prediction for him, he either gets traded to the Nets as part of that Kevin Durant deal, and will he be enough to land Kevin Durant? Possibly. And if Ayton is not dealt to the Nets, and if Phoenix cannot acquire KD, I actually think Deandre Ayton might return back to the Phoenix Suns. Now you're looking at a big who has so much potential still left. And I think he has some gas left in the tank as far as fulfilling his potential. You look at the numbers and they look great, right? 17 points per game, 10 rebounds. He averages less than a block per game, though. And at 6'11", 250 pounds, an elite level athlete, I want to see his awareness get better on the defensive end. I also don't want to see his confidence wane and his aggressiveness wane throughout the regular season as well as the playoffs. Deandre Ayton has all the ability, even playing on a very good roster, to average 20 points per game and 13 rebounds. I think there's a better player in there for Deandre Ayton. So my prediction for him, I think he's either traded to the Nets, or if a deal isn't struck, he comes back to the Phoenix Suns. And I think it could be maybe that qualifying offer, he returns to Phoenix for 1 year, is able to increase his value, then hit free agency next year where he'll really be able to secure the bag. Now, I want you to be the judge with our poll question for today's show. And let me know in the comment section right now whether or not you think Deandre Ayton is a top 5 center in the league. Some really good ones out there, led by Joel Embiid as well as the Joker. Is Ayton a top 5 guy at his respective position? Type Y for yes, or type N for no. As for Collin Sexton, also restricted free agent, really good player who I think over time has become somewhat underrated and undervalued. My prediction for Sexton, he signs with the Mavericks as a Jalen Brunson replacement. And after losing Jalen Brunson to the New York Knicks after he signed that deal worth around $100 million, I think it's of the utmost importance for Dallas to find a sidekick for Luka Doncic. Now, Luka is an incredibly unique player. He has the ball in his hands a lot, and his usage rate is extraordinarily high. And ball-dominant players alongside Luka might not be able to work. But we saw Jalen Brunson work out just fine, and we saw his game elevate over the last couple of years to the point where he was able to secure the bag from the New York Knicks. In transition, I think this would be a fun and exciting combination, Luka as well as Sexton in the half court. I think that Sexton can break defenses down. We're talking about a guy who can average between 20, 25 points per game. And when Luka is not on the floor, or if he misses a couple of games, this is a guy who you can run the offense through or have him steer the ship. So I think Sexton replaces Jalen Brunson. He goes to the Dallas Mavericks. It could even be a sign-in trade if he signs with Cleveland and the Cavaliers want something back for the former first-round pick out of Alabama. Before we continue to move forward through this list on our NBA free agent prediction destinations, I want you to subscribe to the channel if you love the NBA, NFL, and college football. Think about this. We're at this point in the calendar year where the NBA is popping off. But NFL training camp starts in about 3 weeks for many teams across the NFL. And then the regular season, not long after that. College football also on the horizon. We're going to be pumping out a bunch of content across all of these mediums, youtube.com/chatsportstv. As for Montrezl Harrell, because of the current legal situation going down with Miles Bridges, the Charlotte Hornets are in a predicament. I don't think that they have confidence in paying Bridges $25 to $30 million. Also, in terms of their roster need. If they don't bring back Bridges, they have a need at that 4 or 5 spot. And Montrezl Harrell is not the player of Miles Bridges. He can't shoot the 3. He's not as dynamic, and he's not the athlete that Bridges is. But you have to find a way to pay money to some guys out there, and you have to fill out that roster with quality players to make LaMelo Ball happy, because after this upcoming year, he too going to be eligible for a big payday. Harrell's a really good player who's best suited coming in off the bench, and this past year was pretty solid after he was dealt to Charlotte from Washington. 13 points per game as well as 6 rebounds. Because of the Bridges situation, I think that Harrell actually goes back to Charlotte. I think he's a solid bench piece. He's a solid depth guy, and some nights he can give you 15, 20 points per game, and because he's so active, 10 to 15 rebounds. Now, it's funny because Bridges is dealing with the legal situation. So too is Montrezl Harrell. Obviously, Harrell's is a little bit different. That has to come down with the green, which is why there's that background on that L3 right there. We'll see what happens with Bridges as well as Harrell moving forward. Yes, we are live on YouTube, and yes, we put out a bunch of content on YouTube, but also we continue to grow to the platforms that you as the viewers and subscribers use, including Rumble. Sometimes we go live exclusively on Rumble, like we'll be doing on Wednesday's live NBA Now. Also, in addition to our content here, you can find news, politics, tech, and business videos. We continue to grow our platforms as a company, as we as a company continue to grow. So make sure you give us a follow by hitting that green follow button. It's rumble.com/NBA Now. We transition now to Dennis Schroder. Last year, started the year with the Boston Celtics, got traded to the Houston Rockets in that acquisition for Daniel Tice. And you look at the Pistons roster right now. I think he goes to Detroit, a veteran presence on a young team, and they need a little bit of scoring production for a 6-man role coming in off the bench. Now, I love the future backcourt of Cade Cunningham as well as Jaden Ivey. I think Jalen Duren as a rim runner, shot blocker, rim protector, alley-oop guy can be that Robert Williams type of player and fulfill that particular role. But for a guy in Dennis Schroder who can create off the bounce, run a little bit of point, in transition, play a little bit of off ball, he's a solid player who I think you can get at a pretty affordable deal. Now, obviously, we know the story by now. If you don't, the Lakers 2 off seasons ago had offered him a 4-year, $84 million deal. He didn't sign it. He signed with the Boston Celtics for $5.9 million. He fumbled the bag. You're not going to have to pay him, though, $84 million. So if you get him at a pretty affordable rate, I think it's a pretty good pickup for Detroit as they continue to be one of the best young upstart teams in the NBA. Speaking of your team, don't be a homer. Be honest. How did your team do, and how did they fare in free agency? Name your team, then type G for you think they did good, type B for bad. That's bad English. It should be W for well, but we'll keep it moving because, hey, we like to have fun here on the show. For all of you English experts out there, just deal with it. As for Carmelo Anthony, played last year with the Los Angeles Lakers, and I've said this a couple of times, credit to him, how he's been able to extend his NBA career. He really couldn't find a team a couple years ago. Finds a role with the Blazers. Pretty good. Knocked down about 40% of his three-point shots. Goes to the Lakers. And yes, they were a terrible basketball team and an awful watch. But Carmelo was actually pretty good. My prediction here, this is something that I kind of just want to see happen. He goes back to the New York Knicks. He's going to be a basketball famer, a Hall of Famer, as a New York Knick. To New York. Yeah. Alicia Keys with the hook with Jay-Z. Carmelo signs with the Knicks. He goes back to New York. He ends his career there. And honestly, he gives the Knicks a pretty good depth scorer whose defense has improved over time, and he's become a more reliable three-point shooter. Now, previously with New York, that was before the NBA game changed to the point where everybody was chucking up threes. He was more of that mid-range guy. He loved that little pivot step and little mid-range flow. Occasionally he took the three for sure and was pretty good in being one of the best scorers that we've seen in the history of the NBA. But as a guy who can kind of hover around the three-point arc, if he needs some size, he can go down low. I think he could be a pretty good addition for the Knicks. So Melo goes back to the Knicks. This would be a great storyline. This would be fun to talk about. It'd be fun to watch. And for a Knicks team that signed Jalen Brunson, I like some of the moves that they've made and the draft choices they have made over the last couple of years. Can they get back to relevancy consistently? Maybe Carmelo can be a part of that equation. I want you to do this right now. I want you to go down, hit that thumbs up icon, and I want you to like the video, especially if you love the NBA. Show us that you do. As always, we appreciate the support and all of you watching NBA Now by Chat Sports. Another prediction to get to, Miles Bridges. Okay, this is very tricky because of the legal situation. Domestic violence, the pictures were not good. The message from his wife, highly concerning. The fact that he got arrested and missed out on getting $25 to $30 million per year on the eve of free agency is just buffoonery on his part. My prediction for Miles Bridges, he doesn't go anywhere. No team signs him until his legal issues are resolved. If he's found guilty, he's looking at jail time. He's looking at the NBA potentially banning him. This is one thing that professional sports leagues do not mess around with, and professional sports organizations do not mess around with. And that's how it should be. Miles Bridges, if found guilty, not good at all. And if he gave up $25 to $30 million because he let his emotions get the best of him and he got in a physical confrontation with his wife, and according to her, it's been happening for a little while, bad job by Miles Bridges. Not good at all. Doesn't sign anywhere until the legal situations play itself out. So what do you think? The biggest winner from free agency has been who? We're taking a look at predictions for the top remaining free agents, but as far as the biggest free agency winners, you let us know in the comment section right now.